All right, welcome everybody. Again, my name is Lenore Thiba. I'm with Max Brown. This is called Let's Chat About It. Before we meet our first guest, really need to find out from you, Max, if you've done any Christmas shopping yet. What's
Uh,
going on?
Technically, my wife informed me earlier. We were talking with my wife's sister and her husband are coming into town for Christmas, and we were like, I don't know. I'm at that age where I'm not really feeling, I don't know, gift giving, and it's for the like I got 4 kids. We just get stuff for the kids. Adults, I'm getting too old for this. And I'm like, I don't really know what to get my brother-in-law. And my wife has told me repeatedly that this is an area that I need to grow in, is gift giving. So and that's for everybody. We've gotten a couple things, but they're kind of like the pre-Christmas things. So we've done advent calendars with chocolate in the past.
That's right.
But those get eaten in 3 days. So
Yeah.
we're not doing that. So I got to make sure the kids can't hear me. We got them Lego advent calendars so they can
There
make
you
like
go.
little Lego minifigures for Christmas.
Every day you get
Yeah,
to open it.
I think every day it's like a new minifigure and it kind of builds onto each other. And we get different sets. So like our youngest who's 4, she's getting like a Christmassy themed one. And then our twin boys, one's getting Star Wars, the other one's getting Marvel. And then the other one is our oldest is going to get Harry Potter, and she's really into Harry Potter. So it worked out pretty well. And then we do Christmas jammies, but we do Christmas jammies on Thanksgiving so that they can actually enjoy them. It used to be Christmas Eve, but it was like, why?
Yeah, do it sooner.
It's just like enjoy them. It's Christmas. You don't want them in February.
Right.
You want them in December.
Oh
So
no,
yeah,
I wear my jammies all year long.
well, I know, but yeah, and I'm not a jammies guy. Like I don't, and so my wife and I were like, no, I don't think we're doing that this year. So,
Oh.
but we got a lot of catch up to do. We got a lot more work to do. How about you? How's Christmas shopping going over in the
No,
Sneva
not
household?
done, but all in my head. Like I've been on Pinterest.
But you
And
at least have a plan. You at least have a
yeah,
plan.
I really.
Okay,
So I'm not like big on like going to the mall. I'd rather just go online
agreed.
and buy something or make something. So I think this
Hmm.
year I'm gonna make candles. Um,
Oh, have you done that
yeah,
before?
yes,
Okay,
yeah, it's pretty easy. So I'm gonna
okay.
make candles, and then when you make candles, you realize you could also make chapstick because there's some similar ingredients.
So you're making
So
gift baskets.
I think so. I think
Okay.
that's the plan. Yeah. So surprise, surprise for anyone who's listening.
Oh, I wonder what this candle shaped gift
I
is.
wonder what's going on. And then also for people that live local, I'm gonna make. I don't know. I've been perfecting my pickle recipe, and so I think I'm gonna jar some pickles up for people because it's pretty good. I know, granted.
Nothing says Christmas like a jar of pickles. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I actually is even though I kind of poke fun of you at that, I'm like, you wanna ship over some pickles for me?
Yeah,
That
no, they're
sounds
really
pretty
good.
good.
And I've been doing some spicy ones too, and I'll put a little
Ooh,
harissa in there, and some garlic, of course, and some
yeah, yeah,
crushed red peppers, and I don't know. There's different stuff you can do to
yeah.
make it just taste delicious. And I do the quick
Like,
stuff. I'm not like boiling, canning.
oh, okay,
I do the quick method, so you got to eat them
okay,
within like a week or so. But
okay.
anyway, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's I think I think I know I'm becoming older, not just because I'm losing my hair, but because the idea of pickling things sounds good. Like it sounds
Yeah.
like something I want to get into. I
Well, you can
missed
pickle
COVID.
like
Apparently, I missed it during COVID, and I got to do it. I
no,
got to do it now.
you
So,
can pickle like I haven't done it yet, but like you can of course pickle like onions and there's like
oh, everything.
you can pickle anything.
Oh yeah,
Like it's kind of fun. And
yeah.
then
Well,
you
that
can
was
yeah.
like the guy I shared with you on YouTube. For those that don't know Lenora very well yet, she's a bit of a foodie.
I
By
am
which I should. Oh,
oh
come
the guy with the
on.
red hair, that guy.
Oh yeah, but Ethan, yeah, he one of his
Yeah,
big things
I love
is
him.
he always has like quick pickled red onions so that he can just throw
Yes,
them in there.
yes, exactly.
I tried them once, but I didn't use. I don't think I used apple cider vinegar because that's all I had.
Oh no, that wouldn't taste
It
good.
was such a bad. Oh,
Oh
it
gosh,
was.
that's horrible.
Don't think you can.
So
Like, there's
good.
sometimes you can substitute things. You can't do that. That was just.
Yeah, that one you can't
Don't.
do it. Yeah.
No, I'm
Baking
no.
soda, baking powder, you can do that one pretty easy, but not.
Yeah, but not apple cider vinegar or white wine vinegar. That was a
Mhm. Oh
I've
yeah,
made
white
better
wine would be
decisions.
different. Exactly.
Or just white vinegar, right? It's not wine; it's red wine vinegar. God,
Right.
I need to go back to the kitchen and
You should.
learn how to use ingredients. Oh, well, no, I'm super excited today because we've got one of your friends coming on, Della Chen, who I've not met yet, but you have been hyping her up quite a bit.
I know.
She's got a new film. This is her first film coming out, or already has already come out. And
Yep.
you've been traveling up and down I-5 to go see it wherever you can. So
Yes, I have.
I'm
So
super
excited.
excited to have her on. Is there anything like how did the two of you meet?
Oh yeah. So Dell and I met when I was in college at UW, and she was working, and we had a mutual friend. That one was a mutual friend, Michelle, I think, and I think they worked together at the mall at Northgate Mall, and so we
Okay.
were all just kind of began hanging out together. And that's, I mean, that was like a long, because I'm old, so that was like 30 years ago or something ridiculous.
Was that before I was born?
It might have been. Yeah, so she's great, and I'm excited for you all to meet her, and she's doing really good work. And I've seen the movie twice now, and bawled my eyes out both times. It's just such an important piece of history that has never been told before.
Yeah.
And so, um, anyway, I think at the end of the clip, when we talk to Della, we'll share some information on how you can all watch it. But
Awesome.
super excited for you to meet her.
Awesome. I'm super excited to get to know her and hear her story and a little bit more about this film. So let's go ahead and dive right on into it.
All right.
Welcome, everybody. And I want to say a warm welcome to our guest today, Della Chen. I'm going to give a little bit of background about her. Della is a documentary photographer and native Seattleite. She's been telling visual stories for weddings, families, commercial, and editorial assignments for the last 19 years. She's been involved in multimedia projects about homeless advocacy and aging out of the foster care system, Since 2018, Della has been a teaching artist for Pavlov Shutterbugs, a nonprofit organization that teaches the art of photography to kids living with cancer. She also serves on the board of directors for Youth in Focus, a free after-school program in Seattle amplifying teen voices through photography and arts education. She recently released her first documentary film project, She Marches in Chinatown, and it will definitely not be her last. Della, thank you for joining us on our very first episode of Let's Chat About It. So welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
All
I'm
right,
excited to
Della.
be
So
here.
here's the big question. When did you first know you were different?
So when you asked me to join, there was a moment that immediately came to mind. And I haven't really shared this story in a long time. So I'm glad you asked. So I'm a child of the 70s. And I'm going to say I was probably 4 or 5. It was Halloween. And for those of you who remember what Halloween costumes were like, they came in a box.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you could see what the mask looked like through the clear top. And it was usually like this plastic mask that had just cut open eyes and then like holes for your nostrils. And then like this really lame rubber band that would always break off on the back that would kind of keep
That's
it on
right.
your head, right? So it was this plastic mask and this really thin plastic kind of piece of cloth that went over your clothes. And that was like your Halloween costume, right? So I think I was like probably 4 or 5 and I chose Cinderella. And of course, my mom always made me wear a jacket over my costume. So it just didn't make any sense. So I had on this Cinderella mask and then my coat. So you couldn't really see what my body was. And I remember right before I was going to go outside, I went to the bathroom and I glanced at myself in the mirror. And Cinderella had this bright yellow hair that was just like a molded, like, bob style. And then there was my hair that you could see in the back, which was black. And I remember thinking, that looks really weird. Like, I didn't ever think that, I just assumed that I was going to look like Cinderella with this mask, but then my black hair was showing behind the yellow. And I remember thinking that was strange and it looked weird, and that I wasn't really Cinderella at that point, because also I had my coat on. So I had this very strange mask that didn't really fit. I guess I wouldn't really think about what it was going to do to me, but there was black hair behind the yellow blonde and a coat covering the costume. And I thought that looked really weird. And I felt really weird. Like going out, I felt like, I'm not Cinderella.
I'm intrigued, Della. What made you? I mean, obviously, I've got young kids. One of them's 4 right now, but what made you think Cinderella? Why was that the choice for costume that year? What made you want to be Cinderella for Halloween?
I think that's just what the choices were. You know, I mean, I think they were just basic.
You didn't have
animated.
Pinterest in the 70s,
right? Yeah, I mean, you probably had like 10 choices, and they were all white characters with blonde yellow hair. They weren't meant for anybody that looked any different than your, stereotypical American character. So I think the choices were very slim, and that's just what we had to go with. I think all of my friends and neighbors also were choosing Cinderella, and I guess for them, having their blonde hair behind the yellow just kind of camouflage. It didn't really seem like it was that different because it was kind of the same color scheme, right? So they didn't really look that different. But I remember like thinking the black and the yellow it wasn't right. It didn't match.
So Della, did anyone say anything to you? Like when you were trick-or-treating, did someone say, "Oh, why are you wearing that?" Or
I don't know. I think I was probably already self-conscious about it. So if they did, or if there were any comments made, I was probably already like thinking about it. I mean, I already knew that I was different than the rest of like, my neighborhood kids, because, my family spoke a different language at home. And I just already knew that. Like I didn't have to think about that. Oh, I'm Asian and I'm not the same. But I remember the yellow and the blonde was like something that I really thought about at the moment. At like 4 or 5,
Right.
Yeah.
That's a big moment.
If you could go back today to 4 or 5-year-old Della, and you didn't just have 10 options, what would you be for Halloween?
Gosh, I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know. I guess, also like I also have kids and I kind of let them dictate what they want to be. I think back then we were just kind of forced into, whatever was happening is what it was. Whatever was available at the store is what you were. So I don't know if I didn't really think about it. And my parents weren't necessarily very creative or encouraging me to like look outside the box and be whatever I wanted to be. I don't know. That's a good question.
We didn't have a lot of options either. I remember I was like, I don't know, it was like first grade. I was a tomato. My mom made a tomato outfit. Like,
you thought of that idea?
I don't know, because I did like tomatoes, but I was a tomato.
Yeah.
I had a hat that was the stem, and
That's
I was
adorable.
very big because she stuffed me.
I feel like before you turn 8, you're required to be some form of food for Halloween at least once. Because I remember being a hot dog.
Yeah,
That's
the choice.
That was definitely yeah.
You know what? If I had to go back, I would have been a hot dog. That's my answer.
You're sticking to it.
Yeah.
Oh well, I wondered, Della. Part of we mentioned in your biography, you just released this film, She Marches in Chinatown, which is I want to, if you wouldn't mind taking just a quick moment. I've got a question about it, but in relation to this story. But can you just kind of give a quick synopsis to our listeners about your film?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a short documentary film about the Seattle Chinese Community Girls Drill Team. It is the only drill team like it in the entire world because it's a made-up idea. And it's been around in Seattle for over 70 years. So it's been empowering Asian American women just in Seattle for over 70 years. And it's a really cool story. It's not just about the drill team. It's about belonging and identity and what Chinatown means to not only Seattle, but other communities. Chinatown is such a vulnerable subject right now. There are a lot of Chinatowns in the U.S. are, being forced to move or disappear.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's what my movie's about.
I appreciate that, and I'm curious because when I think about, I mean, Halloween isn't that long ago for us, at least as in the recording of this. So it's kind of a timely story, and I think about what how my kids. I've got a 10-year-old, I've got twin 8-year-olds, and a 4-year-old, and who they have decided that they would like to be for Halloween. And there's kind of this admiration. Who do you admire? Who do you look up to? What do you enjoy? How you decide who you're going to be for Halloween. And I think about, you have a limited number when you're in the 70s of who you could be as you make those selections. And then also hear this, this beautiful story that you've now told through your documentary film of these women, these young women and older women who are kind of leading this effort of kind of, women who you could admire and look up to and almost represent through Halloween. But I'm wondering, was that a story that you were aware of as you were growing up? Were you a part of this group, or what was your relationship to them as you were growing up?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Seattle, and I've known about the drill team my whole life. I was a fan, and when I was a teen, I actually really wanted to be part of it, but just didn't get a chance. My daughter is 16. Well, she's 17 now, but she has been on the drill team for the last 6 years.
Wow.
And I think most people in Seattle who have seen the drill team just assume that it's this traditional Chinese activity. So like when people would ask me what Georgia was doing, and I'd say she was on the drill team, and then I'd have to try to explain what it was. I didn't really have an answer because I didn't know. So so I started asking questions. I mean, during the pandemic, the numbers were dropping, and I was trying to, as a parent, step in and find a way to help them. So I'm asking all these questions and learning that, it's this made up idea. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And I'm thinking the story needs to be told.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's personal, but I, never was a part of the drill team. I never knew Ruby or Cheryl Chow personally, who were the women who ran the drill team. So I kind of came into this as an outsider, not knowing very much, which I think was probably a good thing because it's the experience is very emotional for the members. They have very strong relationships and friendships and the sisterhood. And I was able to look at all of the interviews in an objective way, but really come away with what it meant for all of them.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing.
I remember because I've seen the movie, I think twice now.
Yeah.
And I just remember there's a couple things that stood out. One of them that there isn't very many of the original women left. Isn't there maybe 4 or 3 people left?
I think there's about 6.
Oh,
yeah,
6.
from the 1952 team. So they're like well into their almost 90s by now, which is crazy.
And then the other thing that I remembered, I guess there's 2 more, that like you said, because during COVID it really slowed down, and they were already having probably some enrollment difficulties, and then COVID happened, and then because sports are so big right now, and there's so many other activities that people can do, enrollments dropped even more, and so and I know I just wanted you, maybe if you could speak about that. And then the other point I wanted to make was just how interesting, I think if I remember correctly, I don't know if it's half of the girls that are in drill team right now are from adopted families. So their parents are probably white, and their parents are like, you need to be with girls that look like you.
Right, exactly.
Because you're so can you speak to those 2 things?
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I was not able to be a part of drill team was because I lived in North Seattle. And most of the girls that were part of the drill team, starting from, the 1952 and now they're multi-generational. They all lived in the same neighborhood of South Seattle, Beacon Hill. They all went to the same school. They were, in the same community. They went to the same church. They were related somehow. So there wasn't really a need for like outside recruitment because it was known, right? If you went to this, if you were part of the Chinese drill team, you recruited everyone you knew. And I just lived kind of outside the area. I didn't have a relative that went in, but I know that if I did, I would have been involved, right? And now, because there are so many options for girls, and gentrification, girls have moved out of the area. They are now living in different cities on the east side, north end. It's harder to reach these girls. And yeah, one of the surprising things that I discovered when making this documentary is that over 50% of the girls that are enrolled are transracially adopted. And I think that their parents are looking for like a connection for them to have with their biological heritage, even though this is not a traditional Chinese activity. They get to be with girls who look like them, on a regular basis, and they get to hang out and get to know one another. So the reasons for starting the drill team have changed a little bit, but the mission is still there, which is just to have this community of people, girls who look like them and who are experiencing similar things, whether you are adopted or you are multi-generational. So let's see. Did I answer your question?
So
okay.
Yeah.
Do you think because of so much publicity your film has received over the last couple of months, do you think that enrollment has gone up? Or do we know yet?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the next time to enroll will be in April.
Okay.
The drill team now has a website. They hadn't had a website for 15 years. So we're making all these very small steps, so that they can be prepared, because we don't want this program to go away.
No.
Yeah.
And it was, I think, at a very critical stage with COVID and with just so many things that you would notice in the film that it could. So I'm hoping, that is my goal, is that enrollment increases and that it stays.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you kind of alluded to our next question, Della, but what does life look like for you today? From growing up in Seattle to where you are now, what does life look like for you today?
Well, I have two grown children. My son is a senior at UW. He's 21.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And my daughter is 17. She's a junior at Ballard High School. So, family is obviously the most important part of who I am. Photography is still has been my career for the last 20 years, and it's how I make a living. So I hope to continue doing that. I really enjoy teaching. The physical part of photography is very difficult, especially when you are getting older. So I hope that, I can kind of transition into teaching more, and doing more documentary films.
Yeah.
I like the visual storytelling. I like being in a creative environment. I will probably never go back to the corporate world ever again. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel really lucky that I get to do this. I think the film is in a really good spot right now. We're hoping to get educational distribution going for next year. We want the school to be part of Washington State history, because it's been, 70 years of women empowerment for Asian American women.
Yeah. It's amazing. And so just to follow up on that, recently you were featured in the film was featured in the Seattle International Film Festival. Are there other spaces or places that our listeners could enjoy this film?
Yeah, so we are currently doing the rounds in the film festival circuit, probably for the next 6 to 9 months. We are currently been accepted into 16 film festivals, which is pretty amazing. Wow. And we're moving internationally. We're going to have, we were in Vancouver 2 weeks ago, and we're going to have an in-person screening in Sydney, Australia. Wow. And also in China in the next 2 weeks.
Are you going to Australia, Della?
I'm not. I thought about it for about 5 minutes.
Why else did you make this movie except to travel internationally? Come on.
It's 27 hours to fly to Sydney, and that already was enough for me to be like, yeah, I can't do it. Okay. There are other places that I would love to go to, but I think it's just too soon, and we don't really have the budget for it either.
Okay. Independent films. There you go. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So people will be. Oh, and then we're hoping to do some more free community screenings, maybe around Lunar New Year in February, and then also again in May for AAPI month.
Great.
So, you know, we don't have a distribution plan set yet. We're probably going to roll some dates out in 2024. But it's been really exciting to be in a theater in person with people who are from Seattle and not from Seattle, just to kind of get their reactions on what the film means to them. And the feedback has been incredible. It's been really amazing.
Awesome.
All right. I think I might have a good final question, Max.
Go for it.
Della, if you could go back, and I know Max had you go back, I'm going to have you go back one more time to that 5-year-old who was like, you know, in the bathroom going, oh, why did I pick this Cinderella outfit? What would you say to her? Or what would you do differently? Would you do anything differently, or would you do the same? And would you say anything to your 5-year-old self?
I think I was talking to myself thinking,
yeah,
you know, this is weird. I look weird.
Yeah.
You know, I think I was already talking myself, trying to encourage myself just to like be okay with it.
Yeah, good for you.
But like if I were to see my daughter wear it and have and if she were to have some type of reaction, it's just kind of like, you know, it's a costume, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like I don't think I was able to like go to a parent or somebody else and be like, why does this look so weird? Yeah. You know, I didn't have the tools to do that at 4 or 5, right? Yeah, I don't know. I think I would probably, you know, like if I were to say something to like another younger person in my life or my daughter, it would be like, you know what, this is a costume and you're supposed to look different. Right. You're not supposed to look like the person in the costume.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Well, Della, we really appreciate you coming on and participating in our first episode of Let's Chat About It. I do want to give another quick plug. If there's anybody interested in learning more about She Marches in China, I believe the website, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but it's chenaniganfilms.com. So ChenaniganFilms.com. And if you're a local to someplace that has not seen this film, get in contact with your local film society. Try and get a showing where you are so you can enjoy this fantastic short film. And Della, appreciate you again for coming on and being a part of today's conversation.
Oh, it was so fun. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Della. We'll see you later.
All right. See you later. Bye.
Bye. All right. So we just wanted to thank Della Chen again for coming on our show and being our first guest.
So it could have gone good, could have gone bad, and she took the risk of joining us in our conversation today. We'd love to have you back next week on the next episode of Let's Chat About It. Thanks, everybody.